It's only a tiny little part of a big project. Our fortification society is rebuilding a historic cannon, and I have to make a cast model for the wheels on the back. Making these cast iron wheels requires a one-to-one model, traditionally made out of wood. It's got to be divided in two parts. So the first half is embedded in sand, then the mold is turned upside down. The second half is put in place and covered with sand too. The mold is prepared with channels and pipes. Then the model is removed. The iron is poured in, and after cooling down, the mold can be smashed. Everything is big and massive on these old constructions, so that one wheel has 40 kilograms. To get the thickness of half of the wheel, I glued 3 layers of wood together. Then I drew the outline for the rough shape. On the inside of the two halves I had to drill holes for 3 threaded inserts. They will be needed later to pull the model out of the mold. My lathe is clearly the best machine to make these wheels, so for the first time since I got this place, I will try to bring it to life again. It was built 1905, as you can guess after the font in the bottom line. The lathe is still set up for horizontal boring at this moment, still from its last use in the 1970s. At this time, the old Wainwrights produced mostly ladders until it was finally closed. Some parts of the lathe I never found in the mess that was here when we bought the place, but at least I found the tailstock and the tool rest. Getting the chuck off the spindle wasn't easy because the special tools for this are gone. Also gone is the faceplate, or maybe they didn't have one. So I improvised with the horizontal boring chuck and used the threaded inserts in the wheel parts. But the lathe had no motor and no belts. Being in a hurry, I tried to avoid the effort of motorizing the lathe. I tried instead to use it in a combination with the router and turn it manually. First I clamped the router onto the horizontal boring table and routed the surface in a rough shape. Before giving it a perfect shape, I wanted to get the diameter right and to smooth the circumference, but I needed a new setup for this. Routing with a small bit worked fine, but then I had to use a larger one. Here the problems began, and I not only got considerable tear out, but also burnt my router. So it was time to accept that a lathe should better be used as a lathe, and that I definitely had to install its motor. First I took apart the spindle stock because I wanted to use the 4 screws on it to attach an additional frame. Oops, these aren't metric. 1/2-inch screws with BSW threads. Topology can be really annoying. Without a 4th dimension at hand, you really have to take such a pulley shaft out if you want to get a flat belt around it. But the original setup was different. A flat belt ran from this motor to the set of pulleys underneath the main frame, but the motor was in fact located behind the lathe under the floorboards. The motor turns with 1000 RPM, and the step pulleys allow 3 different settings for the speed of the spindle. When I'm now linking the motor directly to the upper step pulley, I will get roughly the same speed, assuming that the ratio of the pulleys below is almost 1:1. I will use the biggest pulley for a start and see if I can install a frequency converter later. After a bit of searching through my various boxes with old tools, I found some chisels for wood turning and started immediately, and for the first time at all. No easy thing, but there is much to be learned. But it was fun, especially the circular coves, and the result was okay for a beginner's work. Using better wood and sharper chisels and having a proper training would have resulted in a smooth surface at once, but so I had to use some epoxy to fill some gaps and turn it again. The second wheel part already came out better. It is necessary that the two parts somehow lock together in the right position, so I marked 3 points for dowels and transferred them to the other part. Now the model is finished. I am really curious now how it will do in the casting process.